Alright, homie. We're looking at closed eyes. So I haven't done eyes in a while. I went back to my notes and kind of looking at what I had, relearn some stuff. I think the big thing with eyes is to definitely remember that it's not, there's no part of the eye that's flat. The actual eyeball is a sphere. So anything, so the eyelid going around it is going to have some type of curve. So I think for closed eyes, that's kind of the biggest thing that I think that you're gonna have to pay attention to when you're drawing these to get some type of realism is that eyelid does actually curve around the eye, and then if you're kind of looking at some other parts of the anatomy of the face, the bridge of the nose helps shape that as well as the glabella and the eyebrow here. So like the eyelid is going to come when it's closed. It's going to come and cover the vast majority of the eye. You're only going to have a little bit that you're actually probably not going to see. So the eyelid, when closed, the top of the eyelid comes further down. So it's not a circle cut straight in half. You're probably looking more towards the bottom, sixth of this circle, where you're going to end up drawing that line that shows the eyelid. It also definitely depends on, if we look at the eye from the side, when the eye is open, you're going to end up with something kind of like this. And then again, we said this part of the eye is it's sunk back from the brow. So you're actually kind of going to have this like step down effect here in the way that these shapes are broken down. That's the eye. Iris would be there. So from the side, that's what you're going to see. The top eyelid's going to be further out than that bottom one. And if you look at it from the side angle, again, those lids are going to wrap. It's wrapping around the shape of the eye, of the actual eyeball. My stuff right now is definitely messy because I'm doing it in pen. I might actually do these in pencil just because I think that was the medium that you were using. So the other thing that you're going to have to look into is the proportion. So eyes, basically when you find the length of an eye, and we're going to define that from like the inside portion of it, that kind of starts there, and then it's, say, like an almond shape is something that a lot of people refer to. Basically we're looking at, this is about the shape of an eye, and then in between the two eyes, you're going to have the full length of one eye. So you can kind of use your hands here to measure this, give or take, and then that is the outside of this one. And it's asymmetrical. It's actually probably too low, but the line from like the tear duct from the inside of the eye to the back of it is actually going to be this backside is going to be lower. right? So the top, you kind of have like three parts to the top. It's 1, 2, 3, and then you have two angles to the bottom. So I know, I'm talking about like the eyes open right now, and you're asking about eyes closed, but this is just in order to accurately draw that stuff, you just kind of got to understand how the anatomy of it works. This one might be a little too small. But anyway, so this will help, I think, for realism, and then the bridge of the nose ends up kind of fitting right in there. This is the glabella. If you're looking to improve portrait drawing, or even just kind of like learn the very basics of portrait drawing, I would definitely look into Andrew Loomis. That's kind of where I learned. I thought I had the book here. I might have it somewhere. But the way he drew the portrait is kind of like standard practice for it now, and that's basically use a ball for the cranial mass, and you slice off half of that ball. Let's look at it from the side view first. A ball, and then it's just kind of like this basic like wedge shape for the jaw, and he'll put a sphere on the side of the head as well that you cross off, and that's where you find the position of the ear that locks into the bottom of the jaw. This ends up being the brow line, so the eyes come in from there. The bottom of this circle, give or take, is the nose, which is going to come further out on the face, and then about halfway through is where you have the lips. And then the top of this circle is hairline, so if you're going to put hair on somebody. And that's just like a basic portion of the face to help you place features. I should probably draw this bigger. Actually, let me see if I have pencil. Let's see if I can do this in pencil. Because a closed eye is going to be, it's definitely going to be easier, I think, to show it with some value versus, essentially you're kind of doing, think about the best way to kind of place this, because you're doing like a zoomed in version of the head, which does make it harder to place the features because you don't have like landmarks to kind of go off of. I don't know, I'm just going to pick a reference photo and try and draw this. I am going to try this in pencil. So the way I start, I kind of build layers. So I'll start with just like very light lines to kind of help me like place some forms. I hold the pencil with two fingers, kind of like rests on this third one. So like I kind of used to hold it like this, but I found that it just gave me like too much pressure. Like all my lines were too dark. You can't kind of work around it. Obviously with pencil you have the option to erase, but I think especially with graphite, you really have to like build your line weight and your darks. And that's why it's also kind of important to know the shapes that you're breaking this down into, because that'll help you place shadows, which will definitely help the realism aspect. So again, like this is just an eye line, so this is how I know that both my eyes are going to be straight. So I'm just going to like plot everything from this eye line, and I'm going to use the eye as a unit of measure. You can kind of pick whatever. Typically, if you're doing a full body, the standard is to use the head as a unit of measure. Say somebody's like 8 heads tall, or the arm is about 2.5 heads or whatever. When you get into the face and the smaller details, the eye is just kind of an easy one to use, again, because we know the spacing between here, and then you can kind of like judge everything off these proportions. So the reference that I'm looking at is a woman closing her eyes. She has a very neutral expression. She's just kind of looking a little bit down at her. I'm just kind of like using my pencil and like tilting to see like the angle of this part of the eye. Since we're looking down, it's actually kind of coming. The outside of the eye is going to be taller than the inside here. And I'm going to say like this is fine for my length. And I would actually probably when I draw faces, I draw like this entire eye socket as like one big general shape. And again, here I'm just trying to like figure out proportion, like how big is all this stuff, like about how much space does this take up, and then this kind of helps you realize if you're making some proportional mistakes, before you get like too deep in this drawing and like start rendering and putting detail in, because I definitely rush to detail. It's exciting to like start shading and stuff like that, but if all your shit's out of line, then it's not gonna, no amount of shading is gonna make that look better. So this is kind of, this is my first one in a while, man. I might have to draw a couple here. That's the other thing, like kind of gotta like to get good at drawing something, you definitely have to do it over and over. There's absolutely no shortcut. It's just bang this shit out. Okay, so this is kind of like general shape of like from the eyelid sitting inside the eye socket, and then I'm just kind of like identifying the planes of the face. Over here is where the front and the side plane of the face. Again, that's something you'll get from Loomis and basically anybody else. Stan Prokopenko is another guy I learned from. And yeah, everybody's going to tell you about planes of the face. It's a way to really simplify the complex forms of the face. I probably should move this over. Shoot. So I can kind of guesstimate, and like everybody's going to be different. Again, this is I'm kind of just drawing like a general face based on this reference, but when you get into likeness and like drawing like actual people, the measurements are what are important. That's what makes people look different, is how far their features are apart from each other, how large they are, kind of whatever, all those different details that makes us all unique. Okay, and so I'm just kind of mirroring this shape here. It's gonna be off. It's always off. I always gotta like make some changes. I'm kind of just like projecting this line across to see that I'm hitting the same point on these lines. I had an old teacher. He unfortunately passed away last year, but he did. I learned figure drawing from him, and he would always at the beginning of class tell us to write HAGAP on the paper. And this is head, angles, grid lines, anatomy, puzzle pieces. That's kind of the order that he taught me to think about drawing in. So head is, again, we're substituting the eye as a unit of measure, but that's all that's saying is find a piece on whatever you're trying to draw, use that as a unit of measure, and just carry that out through consistently. Angles, so that's what I was doing here. I'm finding the angle of the eye here from corner to corner, and then I'm finding the angles of the eye socket, and like obviously like when we finish these off, like all these lines are going to be like curved, and we're going to kind of fill that in nicely. But it is way easier to draw straight lines and make those look good. So I'm simplifying those into angles. G is grid line, so that's me kind of coming across, making sure that these points are on the same line with each other, so that everything's level. Anatomy, that's when you start to get into the detail. So once I have all this stuff placed, then I can start to think about the anatomy of the eye. Again, like we're not going to see the top or bottom of the eyelids, but we are going to see some eyelashes. Like it'd be good to place eyebrows in here too. Again, just do those simple angles, because all we're trying to do is just like make sure everything is placed, and then once all these things are placed correctly, then we can start going in there and rendering. We know that like placement is good. I'm actually gonna bring this plane out a little bit, and I can kind of see here like there's a good line, a reference line that's kind of from the back of the brow that tucks into the back of this eye, and then I'm kind of drawing like the top plane of the cheekbone here. Because I just want a little more space. This, if you ever, I don't actually know if this is true, if I just like heard it somewhere, but Rembrandt, if you look at Rembrandt, obviously one of the greatest portrait artists of all time, he lit his subjects in a way so that this triangle was visible on the shadow side of the face. So he would light the face from one side, and say we're kind of 3/4 facing this way, and nose is going to be there, brow is going to be here, nose is going to come out there, and then here's like our eye socket, and so he'll light the face, so this half of the face is receiving the light, and then this half of the face is going to be in shadow, but he'll leave this triangle here open. And that is very common, like portrait lighting setup. So the one I'm looking at is head on, so I won't have any of that. But I could shade it like this. I actually might, just because that's a way more interesting lighting situation than what I got here. Okay, so I kind of have everything placed here. I feel like it's relatively good. Again, like closed eye is tough because it's you pretty much everything is going to be in one line, which is where you have the lashes, the bottom of the top brow, and then the rest is kind of, you're really just looking at value changes, and you can kind of like group lashes together. Charcoal is a really good tool for doing portraiture. I would recommend looking at that. And I'm just kind of like roughly placing in some darks here. You know, basically this whole bottom brow is in shadow. It's gonna have to kind of like push the lashes a little bit, because that's gonna get a little messy. You know, and then we can kind of start to define other parts of the face. You're definitely going to get a little shadow here as the nose kind of starts to turn into the brow ridge. And I'm sort of just like shading with the contours and adding a little bit of cross contour. But I definitely want to like try and keep the highlight areas clean. So there's like a major highlight right there. So like I do not want to have anything there, because white, I'm drawing on white paper, so that's going to be the brightest part of the paper. And I'm shading the eye again. We're simplifying that as a sphere. Let me see. And so, you know, essentially the light here is kind of coming in from this way, leaving a highlight right there, which means that our form shadow, or our core shadow, is going to be here. This is definitely getting more into like some rendering, but the core shadow is the transition between the light and the dark area. It's going to be the darkest shadow. And then, yeah, everything beyond on this side is going to be your dark values. Everything up here is going to be light values. And so if we were to have a cast shadow on here, it would be about like that. I probably want this a little flatter here. And so again, like graphite, you got to build the layers to try and get value. That is the good and bad thing about graphite. It's kind of a tedious medium. It is very flexible though. You know, and then you can start to get into blending. Like I have like blending stumps is a good way to kind of up the value. This is also these are 2B. These Blackwings I think they're 2B. They're kind of soft lead. You can get like a 6B that'll be for sure darker. But anyway, so I'm kind of looking at, this is the same thing. Like my highlight's kind of on the top here, so the shadows are going to fall kind of going around the form this way, since it's a sphere. And then you can pretty much just do the brow is like one dark value. Don't need to get into like drawing each individual lash. Like I'm not doing lashes here. We gotta call this out probably a little better, but thinking more in like groups. If I kind of squint, I look at it and I see like you know, I'm dropping in like the areas that are darker than other areas, and so that's all I'm doing at this point. It's just kind of like in the same way I'm like placing these big general shapes. I'm starting to place. It's just like two values at this point, and then I can go darker or lighter from here. But this is again just making sure something's looking kind of decent. Things are where they need to be. Bridge of the nose there. Then get more shadow here. Again, picking out and brows are as simple as you like right now. No need to get into it. That one's probably a little too big. Yeah, just going back and like constantly checking stuff, check it against itself. You know, I'm kind of like working the whole image all at once. It's easy to get like honed into an area, so just kind of, yeah, right now I'm just moving my way around. And again, like this line is kind of curving around where this sphere is, that is the eyeball. And yeah, these lashes are need to practice those a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, it's fine. Fine for right now. Okay, it's kind of like that part inside, like right above your tear duct. You can touch it, you can feel there's a little bit of a divot there. Again, just kind of giving a little bit of value to this, trying to turn the form a little bit. Again, just 2 for right now. Just keeping it simple. And the reason why I put these landmarks in here is because that tells me where I'm going to shade. That tells me where the plane is changing on the face. Yeah, this is going to have a cast shadow for sure. Cast shadow of the eyebrows and the eyelid. I'm just gonna kind of fade this off because, yeah, that's fine. And so from here, from the reference that I'm looking at, the back part of the eye is definitely the darkest part. And the lid kind of like wraps into it. So I'm just going to start kind of layering this up here, pushing this part a little further back. Again, with graphite, it's a slow value build. And then you can kind of start to pull some values out with an eraser. See if I needed erasers are the best erasers for sure. These little guys, because you can. It's a really flat lighting. I kind of wish I didn't draw this one. That's fine. Yeah, so I'm just constantly going back and checking. Okay. I don't know where that dropped off. Hope I didn't miss too much there. Sharp pencil definitely helps make good lines. Yeah, this is a tough lighting. This is kind of a bad example, honestly. It's definitely easier to draw with more dramatic lighting. Like flat lighting is the hardest to draw with by far because it's hard to pick out. The plane changes are so subtle. It is difficult to see sometimes. So picking good reference is definitely important. And drawing from reference definitely. I'm not good enough. I do not have a photographic memory. My my library of things that I've drawn is not that big to not use reference, so I always do. Yeah. So, kind of coming in, softening. Like this is gonna be a very soft plane change here. My hands are kind of dirty. This is essentially an area for blending sticks. And then this light is like definitely head on, like straight down the bridge of her nose is where that highlight is, and then kind of come through here, soften. I'm softening up the gaze. My hands are not working. This is just literally just a piece of paper, kind of rolled up. Super cheap. You can get them at the art store, online. I get all my stuff from Blick. It just really helps to blend. You have a lot more control than just using your fingers. They do pick up like a lot of. Like I was using these with charcoal, so like you can see this is like super dark right now, which is good. I wanted to kind of push this side dark, anyways. Yeah, you do this. You use like tissues probably. I've used like paper towels before. You just kind of like roll that up, just something to kind of spread the graphite around a little bit on the page. I'm being like very light, and I'm still getting some pretty dark value changes here. I think it's kind of. It's just getting a little messy over here. Like there's definitely some super subtle highlights that are kind of getting lost. And that's all stuff that like the more you draw a specific subject, like I haven't drawn this in a long time, so I'm thinking about it like I'm kind of like learning as I go, and just if it's something you're more familiar with, if you draw it a bunch of times, like you're not gonna have to like do as much figuring out, like I'm kind of having to do now. Like I'm moving like very slow through this, and it's cool because I'm learning, and I appreciate you asking, because I don't know that I would have tried to study this or even tried to make it look good without this situation. And yeah, again, like this is definitely like kind of like the end of the eyebrow here. This like curves under, and this whole the back of the eye. These lashes are actually too long here, because the back of the eye kind of like tucks under. So there's a definite, on this side, there's a definite place where that stops. Where those lashes stop. It's before the last one. This side got a little dark. It's definitely more subtle than this. Yeah, I never like, when I'm drawing, like I draw something a lot of times, because there's just like so much detail to take in, and that's why I start like very simply first. It just helps my brain kind of like process the information better and like understand what I'm putting on the paper, so I'm not just making like random marks. Because it's definitely easy to start doing that. You can kind of like start when you get to like details of the eyebrows. You can kind of start to call out a few like individual ones. Just a little variation there. Right, so this, yeah, tear duct kind of comes down a little bit there. There's this like kind of curl where it closes off. You almost need darker value. It's tough to do in one value, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to make some of these lines not so harsh. I don't know if it's cheating or not, but I kind of think that's what this tool is here for, so I don't know if I can use it, you know? This is not the easiest angle to draw, that's for sure. Or not the easiest lighting situation either. It's just so subtle. And you know, from I can't tell from blocking. Yeah, from here, this is where you kind of like start to blend in all those early lines, because we don't want to have those too obvious. I'll leave them down here because I'm not really trying to finish this. I'll just kind of like fade these things out is fine, because I'm really just looking at the eyes for this one. Try and pick out a few like individual lashes. I think this would really benefit from a darker color. But I don't know, maybe not actually. As like a two value study, that's okay. I think these, again, these is just so subtle, these plane changes from this lighting. That's kind of tough. Don't do what I did, pick better reference. Yeah, actually don't want that too dark. Actually have eyebrow a little closer. Like sometimes for me it's easier to draw in this way versus this way, so that just kind of comes with practicing using the tools. I haven't really drawn a pencil in a long time either. Past couple months I've been all pen and permanent marker, which is why I kind of started over here. But yeah, and then definitely got to start like just kind of a highlight there. It's like there's not a lot of large details, which is what makes like the closed eye kind of tough to draw because it's so subtle. Like everything is so subtle. Kind of like here, just like picking out the highlights at the top of this eye, and then if I take out a little too much, I can kind of work back in with either pencil or this little dude. Yeah, there's like definite highlights, but they're just very subtle again. Just sound like a broken record, but so I'm like partially looking at the reference, and here I'm just kind of like trying to pull out some of my shapes a little bit more. The ones that I think are most important. And then kind of want these to lead a little darker. And there's like a highlight on the lashes, so I'm kind of breaking up my shading here. And that's kind of my solution for right now for how to kind of pull the lashes away from some of the shadow that's around it. I think that sort of gives them a little bit of dimension. One or couple you can kind of emphasize and get that like curl, the lash curl. And then this is honestly like these lashes are, I'm just going to kind of like clump these shadows because there's definitely a cast shadow from the lashes on the top of the cheek. It's like clumpy might help. But I do think that the lashes are darker than the cast shadow, and I want to make those darker because those are like definitely more of a focal point here. Yeah, it's a little muddy, but so, and that's kind of like, you know, right now what I'm trying to do is like keep the lashes, like even though the lashes and the shadow are kind of close in value, well, they are close in value, so I'm going to render them a little bit differently. So I'll leave the lashes, I'll leave the pencil alone. I won't blend any of that stuff because I want that to be more detailed. Because that's a way you can draw attention to a certain area, is just like put some more detail into it. It's okay. Could do better. Yeah, and then I would probably just draw this more. Like, if you want to get good at drawing something, again, then you got to do it a bunch. So, this is decent effort. decent effort for not really doing this in a while. I do have like a whole. These were my notes that I was consulting. Just like how to think about the eye. Again, some of the basic shapes that it turns into. So I've sort of studied. It's just definitely been a while. And these are all open eyes too, which makes it harder. Never done it. And again, like simplifying the brows, simple lines, lashes, how they can kind of blend together. I didn't render those as good as I could here, but I think it gets the point across a little bit. It's maybe a little. These are probably too large here, actually. Kind of just making that shadow a little more regular. Yeah, man, that's how I would do it. And then, yeah, like I said, just keep studying the same thing. Keep trying different ways to render some of this stuff. But if you're looking for realism, like definitely learning the ways to draw these and the ways to like simplify and break these down. I think shape is very important, like knowing just your simple shapes. I just wrapped up a class where basically all we talked about was sphere, cube, cone, pyramid, and cylinder. And basically with these shapes you can make pretty much anything, and it's all kind of dependent on how you combine them, and what you choose to represent certain parts. Like nose is easily a wedge shape, kind of has a ball at the end. There's a side plane, so kind of this thing comes around here. The wing ends up being here. Sacrum kind of comes down. But yeah, so it's, and then, yeah, it's like glabella. I think that's the name of it. And then, you can put in like that eye socket that we just drew right up there. Place in an eye. And then there's like that part of the face. So, yeah. I mean, I hope this helps. It's kind of like my first tutorial, but yeah. Let me know if I can clarify anything or if you got any other questions. Appreciate you reaching out, man. Take care.